On a cold, rain-soaked night, three families drove down the same rural road and never reached home. Their headlights were seen moving through the fog. Their phones rang for hours. Their cars were found later, locked, empty and untouched. No blood, no broken glass, no sign of a crash, just silence. And in the middle of that silence was one detail so strange that the police refused to talk about it for months. All three families had vanished from the exact same stretch of road. The locals called it Bhalgarh Road. It was a narrow strip of black asphalt cutting through sugarcane fields and dead forest on the edge of a small village in northern India. In the daytime, it looked harmless, almost forgettable. But after sunset, people avoided it the way they avoid graveyards after dark. Truck drivers slowed down there. Motorcyclists took long detours. Children were told never to look through the trees if they heard someone whisper their name from the roadside. For years, those warnings sounded like superstition. Then one night, they became evidence. The first family was the Mehtas, a school teacher, his wife, their 8-year-old son, and the teacher's widowed sister. They had attended a wedding in a nearby town and were returning home around 10:40 p.m. Their last call was to the teacher's cousin, made from near the edge of Bhalgarh Road. He said the road was strangely empty. No traffic, no animals, no wind. He said the sky looked wrong, like it was hanging too low over the fields. Then the call cut off in the middle of a sentence. The cousin tried calling back again and again, but the phone never connected. Barely 20 minutes later, another family entered the same road. The Khan family had left a hospital in the district town after visiting an uncle. They were tired, irritated, and eager to get home. Their driver later told police that as they approached Bhalgarh Road, their headlights caught something standing in the middle of the lane. He thought it was a person at first, a woman perhaps, long hair, white clothes. The figure did not move. The driver slowed down. He blinked. The road was empty again. He told investigators he felt a sudden pressure in his ears, like the world had been wrapped in cloth. Then his memory stopped. He woke up hours later in a ditch beside the road, with his engine still running and his family gone. The third family was the Sharmas. They were not returning from anywhere important. They were simply late. A father, a mother, their teenage daughter, and the father's elderly mother. They were seen entering Bhalgarh Road at 11:30 p.m. by a toll camera 2 kilometers away. They were never seen leaving. Their car was found the next morning in near-perfect condition, parked halfway onto the shoulder beneath a cluster of neem trees. The doors were locked. The ignition was off. The family's bags were inside. The daughter's school notebook was on the back seat, open to a page where she had written one line in blue ink. Someone is walking beside the car. When the police sealed the road, the village of Bhalgarh exploded with panic. People came forward with stories they had buried for years. A milk seller said he had once seen a child standing by the roadside at 2 a.m., soaking wet, staring at passing vehicles without blinking. A priest claimed he heard bells ringing from the forest, even though there was no temple within miles. A trucker swore his dashboard radio had played a woman crying for help, even though the frequency was dead. Each story sounded ridiculous in isolation. Together, they painted the shape of something that should not have existed. Investigators first assumed robbery, then trafficking, then a hidden sinkhole, a criminal gang, even a coordinated escape. But nothing fit. There were no ransom demands, no witness accounts of another vehicle, no tire marks leading away from the road. The cars themselves showed no signs of forced entry. What frightened the officers most was not what they found, it was what they did not find. The road had been checked with dogs. The dogs refused to cross the same 50-meter stretch where all three families were last seen. A retired patrolman later admitted that the air on that part of the road felt colder than the rest. He said his flashlight kept dimming whenever he pointed it at the trees. He also said that, for 1 second, he thought he saw reflections inside the forest that did not belong to any living person. Small movements. A face. Then nothing. He quit the force 2 weeks later. As the investigation deepened, the police discovered that Bhalgarh Road had a buried history. 30 years earlier, a bus carrying students had vanished from a nearby bend after a storm flood. The bus was found 3 days later in a dry canal, but 6 children were missing. 10 years after that, a couple disappeared while walking home from a fair. Their footprints ended abruptly at the same point where the road narrowed near the trees. The village had always remembered these cases separately, like scattered accidents. But one old woman finally connected them. She said the road was built over an older path, and the older path had been used for something terrible. Long before the asphalt, she said, the land belonged to a Zamindar family that kept its own private prison underground. During a famine, people from nearby villages would disappear after being invited to work on the estate. Some were never seen again. Others were buried alive in pits behind the old well. Eventually, the villagers rebelled and killed the family. But not before the last surviving heir cursed the land. Whether that curse was a myth or a memory passed down in fragments, nobody could prove. But the road had always carried a reputation for taking people who arrived at night and leaving behind only their cars, their shoes, with a terrible feeling that someone had been standing just outside the beam of the headlights. Then came the break that changed everything. A young traffic engineer reviewing the road maps noticed that all 3 disappearances happened within a few meters of a forgotten drainage culvert beneath the highway. It had been sealed years earlier after a cave-in. When workers reopened it, they found a hidden chamber behind the concrete wall. Inside were old candles, rusted chains, children's bracelets, and scraps of cloth preserved by dry air. Most chilling of all was a recent object. A wristwatch, still ticking, found hanging from a nail deep inside the chamber. It belonged to the Mehta family's schoolteacher. The chamber led to a network of narrow tunnels under the road, carved long ago and later widened by hand. Search teams entered with ropes and thermal cameras. They found signs that people had been living there recently. Food wrappers, blankets, water containers, but no people. Only markings on the walls, scratched in a mix of Hindi and broken English. One phrase was repeated again and again, with different hands and different pressure, as if many people had written it in fear. Don't follow the light. The final twist came 3 days later, when a boy from the village was found wandering near the fields at dawn. He was the son of the milk seller. He was shivering, mute, and unable to explain where he had been. When he finally spoke, he gave a statement that no officer expected. He said that on the night the families vanished, he had been hiding in the reeds near the road. He watched the first car stop. He watched someone open the rear door. Not a ghost, not a monster. A man. Then another man. And then several more shapes came from the trees, all wearing reflective vests and carrying flashlights. The boy said the men did not attack the families, they guided them. Quietly, efficiently, almost politely. The families were led off the road toward the sealed drainage entrance. He said the drivers looked confused, like they were sleepwalking. The headlights stayed on until the very end. Then, one by one, the cars rolled forward a few inches and stopped, as if the road itself had swallowed its breath. That should have solved the mystery. But it did not. Because when the police raided the hidden tunnels beneath Bhalgarh Road, they found no sign of kidnappers. No fresh footprints, no bodies, no evidence that anyone had been there in days. It was as if the place had been used, abandoned, and wiped clean in a single night. The only thing left behind was a notebook wedged between two stones. Inside was a list of names. Dozens of them. Families, dates, and vehicle numbers. Some entries were decades old. One entry, written in trembling blue ink, matched the Sharma's car exactly. At the bottom of the page was a final line. Tonight, the road chose 3 more. The official report called the case unresolved. The road was later closed for repairs, then reopened. Villagers still refuse to cross it after dark. Drivers keep their windows shut. Nobody stops if they see a figure standing in the fog. And every year, on the anniversary of the disappearances, locals say the same thing happens around 11:17 p.m. The air goes cold. Dogs begin to bark. And from somewhere under the road, deep beneath the asphalt, people swear they hear a car engine idling in complete darkness. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you want to explore more unsolved mysteries and dark history, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, stay safe out there.